What is up, my lovely people in Blue Tablet Land? So for today's video, guys, I'm going to be drawing y'all Shivaji, who also goes by the name Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. He was one of the most coolest and iconic historical freedom fighters that I learned about in history. And a lot of his battles that were fought and all the things that we learned in history class was just amazing when we learned about it, and to think about all the things that he did for India and how it has shaped the history of in general, I guess, of India. But if that's something you're into and you would like to draw along with me, grab your pencils and paper, your tablet and your stylus, and let's get started. So I know over here I've already drawn the rough sketch of him, and the video was actually originally at about, I want to say, an hour and almost 47 minutes, and I kind of did a little bit of editing where I kind of sped it up at some spots and just slowed it down here and there, so that way it wouldn't be like a whole feature film. So I went ahead and turned down the opacity of this to about 20%, and if you want, you can also turn it down to about 15, and it would just be a slightly lighter version of the rough sketch, but it's pretty much up to you as to what you would like to do if you're drawing along. And drawing with the Apple Pencil and this pressure sensitivity that it has is a real cool and soothing thing to draw. And I think this is one of the main reasons also why I like creating these videos that are sometimes about 35, 40, sometimes close to the 50-minute mark, is because when you ink with this, it's just like doing an inking with the digital version of a paintbrush, or at least that's how I see it. So I've looked up a few paragraphs on Shivaji before I did this recording earlier on today, and I just wanted to read to you guys on something that I kind of put together. I mean, it's not a complete detail of Shivaji, but I mean, it kind of gets the ball rolling into what he was like, and some general stuff. And this is pretty much for anybody that's not familiar with a whole lot of Indian history. So with that being said, let's get into it. Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj was one of the greatest warriors and visionary leaders in Indian history. Born in 1630 in the hill fort of Shivneri near Pune, he founded the Maratha Empire in western India at a time where the Mughal Empire was dominant. Shivaji was deeply inspired by the ideas of Swarajya, which I believe is a Hindi or a Sanskrit word, and it stands for self-rule and dharma. And from a very young age, he exhibited exceptional leadership, military skills, and a sense of justice. Shivaji's early conquest began with the capture of forts in the Western Ghats, and he soon built a stronghold across much of Maharashtra. His guerrilla warfare tactics, strategic planning, and use of terrain gave him an edge over larger armies. One of his most notable achievements was his daring escape from Aurangzeb's custody in Agra and his successful resistance against repeated Mughal campaigns. Oh, by the way, Aurangzeb is another person obviously, a character of part of Indian history, and I don't know if that's something maybe I might draw at a later time, but anyway, before I get carried away, let's get back into it. So in 1674, Shivaji was formally crowned as Chhatrapati, which stands for Emperor, at the Raigad Fort, establishing a competent and progressive civil administration. Gosh, I can't read today. He promoted the use of Marathi and Sanskrit in official matters instead of Persian, encouraged by local industries, and was known for his respect towards women and all religions. His legacy as a just and courageous ruler continues to inspire millions in India even today. So, with that being said, guys, even though I read you all these paragraphs, there's still a whole lot more that I could have talked about. But, this video is not about me telling you everything about Shivaji, but, kind of like just getting the ball rolling as to, what he was like. And, if y'all are interested, there's, a ton of articles on Wikipedia. And I'm pretty sure if you go looking up history books, I'm sure there's probably a biography or maybe even a book about him that I'm not aware of. But as I said, I'm losing my trail of thought in what I wanted to say. But when we first learned about Shivaji in history class, it was just one of these really strong and prominent historical figures that that just stands out from the rest. There are so many others that we learned about, but he is definitely the one that I guess is very prominent even like today. Like now, for example, when we go to this place in Mapsa, which is kind of like a downtown or a smaller version of a downtown at the place or in Goa where I live, there is a huge statue of him sitting on a horse, like right in the downtown area, and it's kind of like at a circular intersection. So like whenever you go around, go to Mapsa, you kind of have to go about this roundabout and you can see it from all different angles, and it's just beautiful. And especially when the sun hits it at a certain angle, depending on the time of day, you have this cool shadow that's cast on the road at any given point. Like I'm sure if you would do a time lapse, it would kind of look cool to look at that shadow slowly fade from one side to the other. So here now I started drawing his eyes, and I think any character that you draw, the eyes have a whole lot of story behind him, and all his drawings and paintings that I've seen, all across in history books and all that, you can definitely tell this person was built to be some sort of a leader. And even if it's somebody if you never heard about him, you can just tell that sheer, that power and that look in his eyes, that hair, he's I guess if he was somebody that was still alive today and came into a ballroom or something, you could tell everybody would be in silence, be like, oh wow, this guy is badass. I know badass is not the appropriate, well, it's not an appropriate word, but it is kind of one of those really tough looking guys. It's kind of like in the movie Braveheart, where Mel Gibson is a fighter of his time, and it's all based on the Scottish story, and just the kind of warfare and how war was back then. War is not a good thing, but to be part of an army or any coalition course during that time must have been really send the shivers down your spine. Because can you imagine just standing on one of these battlefields and just going charging with your sword or shield or sphere or whatever you might call. It's just amazing. But so yeah, that's what I wanted to show in this drawing over here of his eyes. I kind of did the wrinkles to obviously show that that maybe he was in a lot of sunlight, and he had he had to strain his eyes to look at the person he was about to fight. And that feeling when you look straight at the sun, you kind of cringe your eyes, and you try to see what you can, and do the best you can. So yeah, And then for his eyebrows over here, what I actually wanted to do was kind of draw out the eyebrow and then fill it in with color. But then I decided on just doing it in the inking process and then just give the hair and texture and shape to the eyebrow, so it kind of looks really cool. On a lot of the cabs over here and taxis and a lot of people, there's a very famous I want to call it sticker or a hologram that a lot of people, like I think of Maharashtrian origin, have his picture either on their rear view mirror or rear view glass, sorry, not mirror. And it's just cool to look at because it's kind of like if I were to compare it kind of compares to the KFC Colonel Sanders logo, where it is, it's a picture of somebody, but it's just depicted in just some lines and a little bit of color here and there. And in this case, it is like a nice bright orange color, which is something what I was thinking about when I was thinking about what color to color him, because that's another thing, which is orange is kind of like a very strong, there's a very strong use of the color orange in the Maharashtrian culture. And it's I believe the reason behind why the orange color has been chosen is because in India there are a lot of the Hindu priests, or as they call them, sadhus, I believe that's the correct term, wear this orange as part of their attire. Like, how in the church you have the fathers that wear white, and then in the Hindus, or in the Hindu religion, or the religion of Hinduism, the sadhus wear the orange, and it's a very bright orange. It almost looks like a kind of like if fire were depicted as a cloth. That's the orange they would pick. So yeah, I know it's all a ramble on, but anyway. So here I kind of wanted to give him some wrinkles, or kind of like, almost, I think you want to call them smile lines. And this wasn't part of the original drawing that I was drawing, but I figured, eventually at some point he probably had a giggle or a laugh every now and then. It's not about war and fighting at any given point. So that's what I wanted to convey. And another thing what I wanted to say is when I was doing reading the passage from earlier on, I'd actually visited, I believe it was, I'm trying to remember if it was the Raigad Fort or another one. And this was back in, we'd taken a trip with my uncle and aunt, and it was a whole bunch of our family members. We'd gone to a place called Mahabaleshwar. And then during that trip is when we had the sightseeing, and that's when we got to see one of the actual forts that he actually was in during the time of when he was alive, which was really cool and beautiful to see, because I still remember this, is when we'd gone to the forts and we went to the very top of it, you could just see vast greenery in all directions, and it's like it just went into the distance, and it was really beautiful to look at. So yeah, when you go to these historic sites, it's cool to take pictures, and I'm pretty sure we may have taken pictures when we went there. And that's the thing what you take away from these illustrations, or just life in general. It's all about collecting good memories and sharing it with my viewers, and having a good time drawing. So now here what I'm drawing is these 3 lines, which is another form of kind of like a blessing that people of the Hinduism faith do. It's kind of like I think it almost kind of signifies the Ash Wednesday setup, where you are anointed with ash. And this, I'm not really sure what it is, but if I were to venture a guess, it's some sort of a powder that's blessed, and then usually the mother or somebody of the or one of the ladies or the family members is usually the ones that put this on the men. And I don't know if it's done for the women, but it's almost kind of like a blessing to them before they're off to set off for something, like, in his case it was war, and for his safe return and stuff like that. So now in this part over here where I'm drawing his earrings, there was a movie that I remember watching, and I think the movie's name is Kesari, which is played by one of the most famous actors in India, who goes by Akshay Kumar. And pretty much his role in the movie was a Sardar, which is another caste from northern India. And basically what the story is he's a bunch of soldiers that are, I'm trying to remember where exactly this was, but it had to be somewhere in northern India. And at the time they had these turbans that they wore as part of their uniform, and they had these really cool looking discs that weren't part of their turban, which you would think is just something like some part of the uniform or the military attire. But what it ends up actually being is it's a weapon in disguise, and they actually show one of the guys actually using it almost like a sickle or like a circular sword. Nobody would have actually thought it was that, because it was kind of camouflaged with their the uniform. So that's what I was thinking about, when I see this and I was drawing it on him. I was like, I wonder if this was some sort of hidden or camouflaged type of sword, or some sort of a weapon type of device that he used. And I don't know, or maybe it could just be earrings, but I'm thinking if it was for a soldier like him, it had to have some purpose. I don't think he would just randomly just wear earrings, because can you imagine if that thing was snagged in the middle of battle? Ooh, that would hurt a lot. But just my 2 cents on the topic. But yeah, another thing I always do is like now for this turban, as I told you guys in the other videos, I always make a new layer and then start the line art. So the good thing about doing this is, especially when you're doing a drawing of this detail, is if you mess up a line, you can always just clear the layer and start fresh. But now if you end up doing it on a layer that you're already working on, then you have to risk erasing a line that you probably already put down. But doing it this way saves a lot of time. And if it doesn't come out the way you want, you can totally just delete the layer and just start from scratch and carry on. But yeah, so this turban, what I'm drawing right now, is obviously in the front view. But if you look at pictures of him in the in a side profile, the headgear that he wears, it almost kind of tapers off. It starts broad and then kind of tapers off to the edge. And I think, if I remember correctly, it kind of has some sort of a tassel attached at the very end, which I don't know if that's probably, maybe at the time it was probably to show what grade or military grade he was at in his army. Kind of like when you go to a graduation, how you have the graduation hats and you have the different tassels to signify what the graduate is. So I'm guessing this would be kind of like in the army sense or military. The other thing what I thought was really cool is that I'm going to draw here in a little bit is these round pearl shaped looking things. And I don't know if that was part of just his attire or that was another form of a secretive weapon, because as I said earlier, that how he was excellent in guerrilla warfare is something that I never really knew what exactly it was, but so I kind of read up about it, and pretty much from what I understood is guerrilla warfare is something that the opposition side or the person that you're fighting has probably a bigger army, and you know very well that you cannot go the traditional route of fighting these people. So from what I understand is you pretty much go infiltrate smaller portions of the army in different areas, so that gives them something to stop and fix. And then while they're in the process of doing that or correcting what went wrong, you go ahead and cause a little bit of chaos here and there. So in the process of all this happening, you get your smaller army of men across to wherever they need to be, and at the end of the day, you've not used a whole lot of people, so I think that's excellent tactic, and that was something he was specialized at, which is why probably he was able to conquer so many forts and all the things he did during his time. But it's amazing that the amount of stuff that you learn off during in history class. Yes, granted, some of the things were boring, but every time we had to read up about him or talk about him in class, I was always excited and always ready to listen to the teacher and what she had to teach about him for the day. And I think, if I remember correctly now, because this is probably more than 20 plus years ago, is we actually had one story that was completely, or not a story, but a chapter that was dedicated completely to all of his battles. And it was just kind of cool. And I don't remember if we ever seen like a slideshow of this thing, and it was kind of like I don't know if you want to call it animated, but it was really well done for its time. So yeah, history is definitely something you either enjoy it or you get bored by it. And for me, there's very few people in history that I think are really cool and have contributed so much to at least what modern day India is today. So obviously, as I said, he's definitely one of them. And I was going to tell you this earlier. If you ever arrive in Bombay, the newest airport that Bombay has is named after him, and it's called the Chhatrapati Shivaji International Terminus. And I'm trying to remember now, when I went there last in November of last year, but there is a huge statue of him on the horse, I think at the beginning of the airport, or I don't remember if it's at the beginning or at the midway point, but it's beautiful to look at him, and because it's huge and just it's so grand, So yeah. So as you can see over here now for the beard, I'm not excellent at rendering hair, so I was just trying this technique where I drew out the outer shape of the beard and then just use these lines to show the hair, and I think it looks good, and at least for my first try. But I think if I was going for a more realistic approach, I would definitely change the pen tip to, or the I think I was probably inking at about a 30%, but probably maybe take it down to about 20 to 10% to get the actual detail of the hair down. And this illustration was just my version of Shivaji, and if I was going for a more realistic look, then yes, I would have tried a different approach. But that's one thing, hair and hands is definitely something that obviously takes some time. And gosh, some days, when I'm trying to draw hands and it it's like I just want to, like, just get up and just run away and just scream at the wall, because it's like no matter what I try, I mean, like, the hands start out looking like a human hand, and then they slowly kind of merge into these little potato wedge looking things, and I'm like, oh gosh. So it's like this sucks, but whenever you're having those crappy days when you think that you just cannot draw, I mean, you just gotta, at least this is what I've been doing, is I just take a step back and maybe just walk away from my drawing. Well, and in this case, make sure you save your work, because you don't want to lose everything that you have done, because then you have a new kind of problem. So yeah, so this is another thing I always do, is I always zoom in and out. And the whole purpose of doing this is something that I learned from an artist, where he talks about, if something, when it comes to the art piece, if you zoom in on it and it looks good, the odds of it looking great from a distance is going to be excellent, because I mean, if you're going to work so close, and if the lines look good, I mean, then definitely the lines, the zoomed out would look beautiful, crispy. And at first I was like, let me try it on a drawing that I was not really recording, and it actually works, and like now obviously in this situation I'm doing it in a raster format, and I'm sure if I was doing it in vector, it would have come out way better, and there would be no pixelization. And man, I gotta tell you, drawing an Adobe Fresco with the vector brush is beautiful. It's just so relaxing to draw, I mean, like, when you go from vector drawing, I'm sorry, raster drawing to vector drawing, it's just amazing to see how something that could be so small, like as small as like a postage stamp, or maybe your fingernail, can look so crispy. And then even if you enlarge it to like maybe the size of a building, it still retains its high high definition or beautiful DPI quality. I mean, it's just amazing. So yeah, that is one thing I definitely like. So now here you can see for the color, I decided to go with the orange, which is what I told you earlier on, is the most famous color that usually people of Maharashtrian descent usually go with. And I think that's part of the reason, is because, I mean, it was the colors that Shivaji had or used. And gotta love that when you don't fill in the lines properly and the color goes all over the place. I mean, at some point, I mean, like, it kind of looked cool on the background, but I was like, I gotta find that spot. So what I did for that was, I just turned off all the layers and kind of looked at where the color was bleeding out at, and all it was is just a small little pixel I was missing. So in this kind of work, I mean, sometimes it can get frustrating to figure out where it's from, but once you find it and you close it up, I mean, it's back to shading as usual. And then for the outer barriers or the coloring for the cloak that he's wearing, I chose like almost like a yellowish kind of an orange, which kind of looks really cool. And as I progress in the video, you'll see me using the different shading methods that I'm using, and it looks really nice when you pick out the right colors. I mean, like, color theory is definitely an interesting class that I taken back in college when I was, what was the class? I think the name of the class was called Introduction to Color. And what is really cool about this class, or the book that we had in this class, is it's amazing. If you use the right colors and you complement it right, the illustration at the end looks beautiful. But if you choose like, two primary colors and no secondary color, it's amazing how, a beautiful illustration can look kind of a little bit off because of the color choice. but that's definitely something that you kind of learn over time, and you just have to practice and see how to get good at it. So over here I kind of chose almost like a saffron kind of a yellow, because I think it kind of looked good with the turban. And I think over here I kind of also what I did was I kept his eyes blank, so that way I could fill it in with a brown, so it kind of looks better than just coloring it with the usual ink color. Now that I look at it, I mean, his texture of his skin kind of almost looks like tea. But hey, nothing wrong in tea. And go ahead and color those. I don't know what the exact terminology or those lines are, but as I said, early on, it's got something to do with having a religious background and having a safe passage and a safe journey kind of. That's at least what I know it to be called. But if it's called anything else out there, comment below and correct me. But at least that's what I think it is. And then for these pearls over here, I wanted to keep them white, but then I was like, keeping them white would be difficult to show any sort of color or contrast in them, so I kind of went with almost like a very supple yellow color, because the white obviously would not show, obviously, because of the background. And I think it turned out good. It kind of doesn't camouflage completely, but you can tell the difference. So here's a technique now, what I've been doing in my illustrations when it comes to shading that I'd never really done before, and I think I may have probably said it in my earlier illustrations, is what I do is I select the dark color of the inking, which is like now for example like the eyebrow, and what you do then is you make a layer right above the flat layer of flat colors, and then what you do is you turn down the opacity of that to about 20 or sometimes about 30, and what ends up happening is what you can see over here is it gives you the perfect shadow over the color over the flat layer, so you don't have to really do a whole lot of guesstimation as to what would be the best color for the shadow. And the thing what I really like the best about doing this technique is, say for example like now what I'm coloring in the turban, you have the orange and the yellow, and I just think this yellow is just not perfect for this, and I maybe want to brighten it up or darken it down. All I got to do is select the flat layer and then just drop the color of choice that I wanted, and then boom, the shading which I did on the layer on top just automatically shows up for the new color. And it's a real cool method of shading, which is something I never knew for the longest time, because earlier on when I drew other illustrations, all I did was choose the color, choose a darker shade of that color, and then just eyeball it to see what color looks good. But with this, I think I really like how it takes the guesswork out. It's kind of cool because say if this is something I wanted to do a painting of, I could just print this out in color and try to color match as closely as I could for the painting, so that way it all looks beautifully put together, and the colors don't look off and on in some parts. Oh boy, 34 minutes in. Sometime I gotta tell you, doing a voiceover for a video that's over an hour long is definitely a challenge, but at the end of it, after you listen to it, you gotta be happy with what you're putting out there. And as I said, in my other video days, I don't rehearse any of this. The only thing as of right now, what I kind of read well, not really a script, but was those 3 paragraphs early on in the video, which was just something that I had found on him and thought it would be like a good start to somebody that does not know a whole lot about Indian history. So for the most part, I just like, talking over what I'm going to say and, kind of see how it goes and accordingly edit something out if I don't like it, and then just start over back from scratch or from wherever I left off. So as I continue the shading in the turban area, I just followed the lines that I put down and kind of looked at some reference images on Google and Pixabay to just see how different fabric looked in different light. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, for the turbans that these freedom fighters and soldiers wore in those times, if I were to venture a guess, would probably maybe be cotton or silk. And I think, and the reason I chose cotton first is because, obviously cotton is a breathable fabric and, it is good to repel the heat, I believe, of the sun. So that's what I thought maybe it was made of. And then the other thing I could possibly think that it could possibly be made of would be silk, because silk, for the most part, if you look at the texture or the feel of the fabric, it has that nice soft and supple flow to it, and that was reserved for people of royalty. And he is definitely, I would have to say, royalty, because he lived in a fort, and forts back in those days were not something that was like just a 1 bedroom or a 2 bedroom house. And these things were huge. The ones that I had visited, which I told you early on in the video, was big. Granted, it had been overtaken by the greenery around the area. It was huge. So yeah. And now for the shading of the beard, which is the rendering of hair, I again, as I said, just followed the lines that I had put down to give it the shading that I was doing. It's almost like what do you call it? Now I'm repeating myself, but doing cartoon anime type coloring, which I think is really cool. When you think of characters like the Hulk and Superman and Spider-Man and all that, how the different animators and artists use these different techniques of coloring. That's something what I was trying to see if I could replicate in this drawing, because when you think of shading, there's this kind of shading which you have like the flat color and then the dark colors, and then you have the airbrush look, which personally I don't think the airbrush shading would look good for hair. And so it was just looking at reference pictures, looking back at the image, and that's what I do for any illustration that I'm going to be coloring. And if it's something that I have not done in the past, I just look at reference images and just try to follow the style of shading, or at least the look of the real thing, and see how close I can get it to the illustration. Even on my other channel, the Blue Cranium, when I draw my skulls over there, if there is a certain look and feel that I'm going for, I always have like a bunch of reference images open on my laptop which I can refer to and see how close I can get the shading to what I want. It's a constant improving process. If I like how the shading turns out in this one illustration, then I just carry that forward to the next one and try to make minute changes as I go on, because the art game and learning to shade, learning the different line weights is all slowly, what do you call it? it's almost like building Legos. I mean, like, you know how you start with the base of something and then you slowly build off on that, and then once you get that layer of blocks laid down, you start with the next layer, and then, you know, just keep going. So that's what I was doing for the hair over here. So what are you guys following along? And I hope somebody's following along. Like to draw. I know it's like, as I said in the starting of this channel, I drew like simple things, and now I've like slowly started like fading off into these kind of character drawings. And I think for the overall audience for the channel, I think it's good to show something simple and then something a little bit, I don't know if this would be considered intermediate or a little bit higher up there, but you know, for anybody that's following along and drawing, you know, if you need to, pause the video and just draw at your own pace. I mean, because that's the whole point of these illustrations, is to just have fun, give you all a little bit of some info about the drawing that I'm doing, and see how it goes. The shading sessions on all of these illustrations definitely take a lot of time, and what I do is I pick a certain spot that I want to concentrate on, and then just slowly work my way through the illustration. Like now for here, I chose the eye and wanted to show what the different shades of the skin would look like if the light was, I want to say, coming from the top end or from the left side of the screen. And I may get this wrong or I may get it right. And the best way I found to get good at shading is to look at an object and just study it. You know, like, I mean, turn off the light source and see what the object looks like in the colors, and then turn on the light source and then see what the colors and how different they are, where the shadows fall, where the highlights fall. And that's, I think personally, that's the best way you can learn about lights and shadows, because that's pretty much what makes an illustration pop. I mean, like, you know, taking it from the flat colors to the shading definitely adds a certain level of detail, and that obviously comes with time as you keep doing it and keep practicing, and you know, just coloring in general. So whenever we would come down on vacation and my dad and I would go visit my grandma, I would always stay at the garage or the work area where my granddad would paint, and I would just observe him and to see how he would mix and match, you know, like, you know, the old school painting where you actually take a red color and then mix in a different shade of different colors to get it at a darker level. And it was just cool to see how he followed the process for you know, when he would do different paintings. And I remember in the family home that we have, he had done a beautiful painting of my uncle, who also shares, or I share the same name with him when he had passed away. And he had done a beautiful, I think it was a front profile of him, and he had done the entire art piece in an oil paint setting, and that was his specialty. And I don't know if he ever worked with acrylic paints, but just watching him paint was just very nice to see. And even till his very last days in his I think he lived till his 80s, his hand was as sturdy when he would be making, like, you know, line strokes. And that's just so cool to see that, you know. And I hope that if I make it to that age, that I'm able to draw and be able to practice my art and you know, get somewhat decent at coloring and shading and everything that goes along with the coloring process. So for this now over here, the neck, I think I kind of just guesstimated what the shadow would look like, and I couldn't really find like a proper image with a front-facing neck like this, so I just improvised and made my own shading and try to give it some sort of detail to show like the neck muscles and all that. And then as usual, just continued my shading through the rest of it. But yeah, these illustrations and the ones that I've done prior to this, which is like the man with the turban, the lady with the pigtails, and then the one before this, which was the lady with the parts on her head. It's cool to learn so many different things and slowly make slow tweaks as I go on, and then I just observe and I look at my old videos to just see how much my art keeps changing every time I make them, and with that being said, you definitely have to keep track of your progress and keep improving, because the day you decide you're excellent at something is the day you actually fail, and that's one thing I always tell my kids, always strive to do something better, and always never give up in whatever you're doing. And that's, I think, obviously one of the main reasons why Shivaji made it this long and was able to accomplish a whole lot in the little time that he was alive. And the reason I say he was the little time that he was alive is because when you look at it and you read about him, he passed away in his 50s, and there's speculation and articles where they say that some articles say that he passed away from an illness, and then I think there are some articles that suggest that he was killed. So whichever way he died, it's kind of sad to know that he passed away too early on, and it would be nice to know if he had actually lived till his 70s or 80s, what all he would have had more accomplished. But that's the thing with life, it's so uncertain. Some people live well into their 90s, some hundreds. In fact, one of my dad's mom's father lived all the way till he was 95, and I was like, oh wow. Nowadays getting to that age is just what do you call it, unheard of. I guess it depends on which part of the world you live in, but there are actually some now that I think about it, there was a documentary that I had looked at, and it shows that there are certain parts of the world which are called the blue areas, and pretty much what that means is that people that live in those parts of the world have a life expectancy of 100+ years, which is just my gosh, for me, if I make it to my 75 or 80, I think if that would be cool. But getting to the age of 100, that definitely is a long time to be on this earth. But hey, none of us know how long we're going to be here, but for the time that we are here, you just gotta make the best of it and keep on drawing, or do whatever it is you find happiness with doing. So for this part over here, for the shading of the I always call this a cloak that he's wearing, or some sort of thick fabric. It's hard to show the folds and the different lights and not lights but highlights and shadows of the fabric, so I kind of just looked at different fabrics and just kind of did my version of what I thought it would look like. You know, when you have like the different tensions and ripples that show up in a fabric, you know, when it is stretched a certain way, you have the little lines. It actually looks like lines, but it's just the fabric stretching and contorting in different ways. So yeah, coloring and rendering clothes is definitely something also that takes a whole lot of time and practice and getting good at. So what is it, my lovely followers, that you guys like to draw? Do you all like to draw freedom fighters like this? Do you all like to draw cars, buses? I mean, you know, if there's something that you all would like me to draw, I know I've probably said this in my earlier videos and I'll keep saying it. If there's something you all would like me to draw, and, you know, maybe draw it in my style, I mean, like, you know, just leave me a comment and I will try my best to accommodate it, so that way, you know, everybody learns together and has fun. Just follow the the contour of the fabric over here to make it look like the fabric was a little bit stretched. I made these little windows, you know, to signify some sort of like a gold beading, which I don't know if he may have had this. I mean, this was just my personal touch to the illustration and to make it look more more wealthful, more king-like. So yeah, it almost looks like gold. So I think that's what I was going for when I chose that yellow. But so far everything looks good. But yes, definitely the zooming in and out definitely helps a whole lot when you're shading too, because that lets you see how it looks up close and definitely how it looks like when it's from further away. Now for this part over here, I could have possibly used the selection tool for this technique, which would have been perfect, because all I would have to do is just use the selection tool and just make the wavy lines that you see, and then just color drop the color into that section, so that way it would fill it up and I would not have to manually shade that in. But just for the heck of it, I mean, I just went and did it manually to see what it would feel like to do, as opposed to doing it with the selection tool. I always try different things when it comes to shading, to see which one I like and which one I don't like. So that way, as I start new illustrations, I always make it a point to decide before I go any further, like, you know, as to which technique I'm going to use for this one, and then which one I'm not going to use. But yeah, the selection tool definitely is a cool tool to use when you're shading, because you can get these really cool looking designs that you cannot completely duplicate with the pencil. And I think that's also another technique that I learned from another artist, and because I never really thought of using the selection tool for shading, but for the most part I would always use the selection tool just to select some part of the illustration and just drag it off the screen so I could erase it. But then when I seen the demonstration of the selection tool for shading, I was like, you know, that's a cool idea, and gave it a try, and I really liked it, so I've kind of implemented it as part of my illustration process. And over here I just use my version of color to show the shadow that would be caused from the light coming from the top, so that way you could see how his eyebrows would look. I mean, I don't know, honestly, that would be completely realistic, I mean, or completely fictitious, but at the time I thought it looked cool, so I just went with it. And now here for the shading, I'm sorry, not the shading, the highlights, what I did was I selected a yellowish color for the turban, almost to give it like that silky look. And I think it really came out nice, because usually what I would normally use would be like a white color, but since the background is already white, I figured I wanted to try something different. And I think the yellow over here for this one looks nice. It doesn't overpower the shading, and it looks like it's some sort of a fabric. With this part, I mean, you can definitely try your own methods. If you see something different and you want to try it, I mean, you can even experiment with a different color altogether. You could use maybe, I don't know, you could use white, but then that would not be trying anything different. I mean, you could definitely use a very light shade of the orange color and see how that looks. And if it looks good, roll with it. And if it doesn't, obviously, change it up and try something different. So what I was trying to accomplish over here was trying to see how this silk wrap turban of his would look if he was standing out in the sunlight, and if the sun was hitting it, and how the fabric would look different in different aspects. And then I used it over here for his, this is something I don't know if I talked about earlier in the video. I think I don't know if it's called a ticker, but just wanted to throw that in there. And then I just slowly, as I said, work my way through the illustration and do it for this part of the fabric. I don't completely end up finishing all of the highlights in the video, and the only reason for that is because I was looking at my time and trying to make sure that this video wouldn't be as long as it is. So I kind of finished whatever I thought felt good enough to proceed, and then the remaining of this I just continued off and had the camera turned off, obviously. Now for this over here, I chose a brighter yellow for the fabric over here, and it almost gives it like that nice electric kind of a look, which makes the fabric kind of look like it's bright and almost like there's light really up close to the fabric. So I think it turned out really good. There is a cool brush that Procreate has. I'm trying to remember if it's under the luminous or illumination setting, but it definitely is I would call it a flame brush, because it has this nice look and feel that if you choose any color, whether it be blue or yellow, it gives it that nice neon light kind of glow look to the illustration, and it really looks beautiful. So I was actually thinking maybe I should have used that for this, and it probably would have come out a little bit different and way cooler. But hey, you know what? You can always do with the next illustration and see how it turns out. This is by far, I think, one of my most favorite illustrations of all the characters I've done now so far. Starting with the blue turban man, the girl with the pigtails, and then the lady with the part. And now Shivaji. And I just like to keep experimenting and seeing, different drawing techniques and shading, and seeing which one actually looks better than the other. But yeah, so hope you guys have enjoyed the video up until now. For anybody that is still watching and drawing along, I mean, I hope this was fun, because I sure had a whole lot of fun drawing it. I know, as I said earlier on in the video, it was almost 2 hours long, but to make it acceptable for the YouTube audience and for people watching, I kind of trimmed it down just a little bit. And see. Honestly, I mean, I always like to know from the followers and viewers watching what is the perfect or near perfect time y'all would like for an illustration video. Would you like it to be an hour long, 30 minutes, 15 minutes? I personally think a 30-minute illustration would be nice, but whenever I try to get down to that number, I kind of feel like I really have to hurry through it, and it just doesn't come out as good. So this is the number. After doing a little bit of editing and speeding it up just a little bit, I think this is kind of like the the soft spot or the correct spot for time. But I guess I'll have to see how the video performs and what people's comments are, and if people are following along, what they like, what they didn't like, and make the adjustments accordingly. But I really do like doing this part of the highlights. I think it really came out really cool. It definitely put the illustration to give it almost like that unrealistic kind of like a glow off the screen. I mean, I know the screen obviously of the iPad obviously has light, but when you choose the right colors and shades, as I said earlier on, and highlights, it definitely makes the illustration look a whole lot better than just not doing it at all. I mean, like, now I could have chosen to just leave it as flat colors, but I think it would just look incomplete. So that's why I wanted to show you guys what I do when I do my shading and highlights. So hopefully this is something that y'all can implement and draw in your very own drawings. And if y'all do end up doing something, I mean, I don't know how y'all would share it to me, or share a picture with me, maybe on my Facebook page, or maybe tag it on Instagram or something. It'd be cool to see what artists are doing out there, and seeing if they're having a good time drawing and drawing along. But well, it looks like we are coming close to getting done, guys. So I really hope you'll enjoyed this almost an hour and let's say 5, 6, maybe 7 minutes long video of me drawing the wonderful and awesome Shivaji, or to add a little bit of spice, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. I sure had fun drawing it, so hopefully y'all did too. And hopefully we'll have some more fun drawing other characters on the channel, telling y'all some stories, drawing along, and learning together about different characters from different time frames and all that. But now I'm kind of just doing all the finishing touches, or somewhat of finishing touches, because as I said earlier, I didn't record everything that I did at this point. I mean, I just kind of made it look presentable to show to the very end, and then off camera I just kept on working at it and adding a few more lines for his face and the rest of his clothes. But so far I think for an hour and 7 minutes, I think, give or take, I think it's pretty good. Because I mean, when you think about these drawings, I mean, there's only so much you can edit out before it's like, what's the point? So I try to make it where it's something that somebody can draw along, and if they want to, I mean, they can fast forward to a certain spot. And that's another thing. What I do is I like putting chapters in my videos. So if you're not into the line art and you just want to use the shading part of the video or the highlights, I mean, you can jump right through it. And if you don't like the shading and you want to just watch how the line art's done, I mean, you can jump right to that as well. So many things that you can do on YouTube. It's kind of cool to try it out and see which one works and which one does not. So this is another thing I was saying is trying the shading for the face and giving that wrinkle look. And the reason I gave tried this wrinkle look is because, just to show that, because obviously when he was fighting back in those days, he was exposed to the sun, so there's no way he would have looked picture perfect. So kind of tried to give it somewhat of a hyper realistic look. Never really rendered wrinkles, so I think it kind of came out good, but y'all can let me know. And for this, I actually looked up pictures of an older man, an older lady, to see how you would illustrate wrinkles, which is pretty much, if you think about it, it's just shading. You're just doing a darker shade of the color against the skin, so it creates that illusion of depth, even though it's a flat surface. So yeah. Another line there. And just following the lines. I think that's another thing of, just adding lines and just following it along with the last one you put down kind of adds that somewhat of a realistic look to it. But yeah. Alright guys. So with this being said, we are almost at the very end. And I really hope you guys enjoyed this video of me drawing Mr. Shivaji, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, and I've said it more times. You can clearly tell I was excited drawing him. So hopefully you all enjoyed as well. And let's go and wrap this up by saying keep creating guys and drawing along, and I will see you all in the next edition of what character I'm going to draw next. Take care guys. Bye for now.